We have to learn that to look behind people's masks. We have to learn what's really, really going on behind them. You've got to be aware that people are playing political games. Whenever three people are together in a group, there's politics, there's ego, there's battling. Unconsciously, they feel envy. They think that you have success that you don't necessarily deserve, that you have what they want. There's so many people out there who talk and talk and talk, but never do anything. People, as I said, the main mistake we make in dealing with other people, and it's a common mistake that I make as well, is we take the appearances for reality. We take their masks for how they appear to us, for their politeness, for their smiles, for their saying, oh, I loved you, etc., for the reality. And we have to learn that to look behind people's masks. We have to learn what's really, really going on behind them. And we have to learn some basics about human nature. People like to believe that they're essentially good, saintly, virtuous, however you want to do it. People want to believe that they're intelligent. You never want to feel like, I'm not stupid, I'm intelligent. And the other third thing is that they're willpower, that they're in control of their lives. They do things because they decided to do it. To make people feel insecure about their intelligence, right? To make them feel like they're not moral or they're not good. To make them feel like they do things not because they choose to, but because they were forced to or because they're not aware of themselves. They hate that. They're going to hate you. They're going to resent you. They're going to resist you. Knowing some basics about people like that gives you the power to use that for influence, for persuasion, okay? Understanding envy in the human world. And on social media, envy is just is like a nuclear bomb. It's just exploded. Our tendency to feel envy, to compare ourselves to other people. You've got to use that for power. There's great power in that, in a marketing publicity sense, virality, getting other people to be interested in what other people are doing. That's how things sell themselves. If you try and tell people what they should buy, as opposed to, look at what other people are doing, I want to join in on that, right? Knowing about these basic qualities in human nature, about how we like to compare ourselves, how we have these certain opinions about ourselves, et cetera, gives you all of this power to take that human nature and use it for whatever purposes you want, for good, or unfortunately, some people use it for bad. I have a chapter in, in the 48 Laws of Power about infection. And I think it's an experience many of us have had, where you're around somebody who seems at first glance to be very interesting. And they become your friend, maybe. They're very dramatic. And they have all these stories to tell. And they seem almost slightly larger than life. And you engage with them. And then you become friends. And then slowly, it becomes clear that they're a little bit nuts, right? They're always talking about how this person screwed them, how that person screwed them, how this boyfriend or girlfriend was so awful and so nasty. You begin to realize, is this true? Or is it maybe they are the problem? But now they're your friend, and now you're emotionally attached to them. And now they have room to play all these kind of games on you, and all of their drama starts infecting you. And it's like, God damn it, I want to get away from this person, but I can't. They've infected you with their negative energy, and it gets under your skin. And so you have to avoid people like that. You have to read before you get involved with them that they are a drama queen or a drama king, because there are just as many men out there who have this quality. You have to see that they play the victim of everybody else, but actually they kind of bring it onto themselves. Some people are genuinely unfortunate. Bad things have happened to them, and it's not their fault. I'm never saying it's a misconception about that chapter, that you should avoid everybody who's unfortunate. There are people, and a lot of people out there, whose circumstances have made them, in their what's going on. It's not their fault, right? But then there are other people you have to recognize that the bad things that happen to them are things that they have brought on because they have this infecting power. It comes from a deep insecurity. You don't want them in your life. Being around insecure people will make you insecure. Being around confident people who kind of know what they're doing, who've got their act together, who are trying to make things and accomplish things. Because there's so many people out there who talk and talk and talk, but never do anything. Being around people who do things, who get things done, who've made a business, who've made this, that, or the other, they're gold to be around because they'll infect you with their positive energy. In the Laws of Human Nature and in several of my books, I talk about the phenomenon of envy, which is very, very powerful human trait. It has roots, very ancient roots. We know that in hunter-gatherer societies from thousands of years ago, envy was a real problem. And so they create all kinds of rituals to avoid envy, where the moment somebody in a tribe received a gift, they had to give it to other members so they wouldn't face envy, because facing envy, you could be murdered for it. So you learned all of these rituals. And we've noticed that chimpanzees feel envy. You give one of the higher up chimps, because they're very hierarchical, a grape, and all of a sudden all the other chimps are very wanting that grape as well, and they feel envy, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's an extremely human emotion. The thing that we don't realize, though, that the people most likely to feel envy, first of all, we all feel envy. We're all comparing ourselves to other people. I feel it all the time. Right now, I envy Ryan Holiday because he's, so 30 years younger. He's sold so many books. He's got all this great stuff. I know what envy is like. I feel it. We all feel small degrees of envy. But there are people, I call it passive envy, but active envy means people act on it. They do something to hurt you. They sabotage you in some way. Frenemies are the classic scenario. So somebody who feels envious of you ends up befriending you. And consciously, they may not be even aware of that. They think, well, I do want to like them, but unconsciously they feel envy. They think that you have success that you don't necessarily deserve, that you have what they want, right? They become your friend and they charm you, et cetera, et cetera. And then lo and behold, you start noticing all kinds of behavior that's very ugly that you weren't expecting because they're your friend. They start saying bitchy comments that get under your skin, that make you feel insecure. They take things from you. They act in ways that are hurtful. But because they're your friend, your first instinct is to blame yourself. Well, maybe it's my fault that they've done this. Maybe I'm actually to blame for what they're saying, et cetera, et cetera. So I believe behind the frenemies phenomenon is this phenomena of envy, where the person secretly wants what you have and they're becoming your friend so that they can wound you. And what's best to do is to recognize that. And one common sign of a frenemy, of somebody who's befriending you out of envy, is they're in a rush to be your friend. Normally, we like to take it a little bit slow. We just don't let anybody into our lives. We like to vet them a little bit beforehand, right? We don't trust everybody. But the person who feels envy is like, I love you. You're fantastic. I want to be your friend. We got to hang out. Let's go out for dinner the next night, et cetera, et cetera. They're in a hurry. That's a sign that something else is going on, because that's not natural. Your status changes. We've all had to deal with that. I've had to deal with that as well. You have success, and you came from a background where you weren't so successful, and your friends are still there, and they envy you. And they're not very nice to you. And, it's not a good quality. And I understand the quality. I understand where it comes from. And I wrote about it in Human Nature, where we're all aware of the what we call Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude means you take pleasure in other people's pain. So you hear a friend didn't get the job that they wanted to get, and you go, oh, I'm sorry. But deep down inside, you're kind of happy. We all go through that, right? The opposite is Mitfreude. It's an expression that Nietzsche coined, which means you feel joy for other people. I like to try and cultivate some of the higher qualities in life. So if something good happens to somebody, my first thing is I might feel a twinge of envy, but then I go, It's great for them. I'm actually very happy. I'm excited. I share their joy in what has happened, right? But it's not natural. So when somebody that you know and you've known for a long time has success in life, your first thing is to be, they didn't deserve it. They kind of cheated their way to it. Okay, as we talked about in the very beginning, you confront that ugly emotion yourself and you go, that's not who I want to be. And you go, I'm going to make myself feel the opposite. I'm going to make myself feel happy for their success. It's not natural, and most people don't go through that. And I know personally from people I knew before I had any success in life, they're the ones that give me the fewest amount of compliments for my books. They never read my books in the first place. They're very spare with what they say. They've got a pinched look on their face. Whereas people I've never met before in my life give me all kinds of compliments.
Why is that?
Because they're envious. They're upset.
A lot of young people, and I was guilty of this when I was young, are very impatient. They want to get to the top quickly. They want to start making a lot of money. And the goal here is not to get a raise right away, to make a lot of money, to get promoted. The job is to learn skills, to observe how people are, to observe the power game, and to master it early and slowly by observing what's going on around you and not being in a hurry to impress people. I've never had a job in my whole life for more than 11 months. I've had like over 50, 60 different jobs, which doesn't say good things about me. I'm very restless. I don't get along so often with people in these situations. But I can remember I had a job in the 90s for a television show. I won't mention the name because it's rather embarrassing to me, which television show this was. And I was a researcher on the show, which basically meant my job was to find stories that they would then go out and film. It was kind of like a reality television show, right? And there was a team of researchers there. But I was by far the best researcher there. I've been doing research for many, many years. I have definite skills in that. I'm not good at a lot of things, but that's one thing I'm good at. And I'd say of the team of 8 people, 80% of the stories I had found, which was a pretty high success rate. And then one day, the boss, this woman, she kind of chewed me out in a meeting. Like, Robert, you've got an attitude. You're not paying attention. This is very important that you listen to what's going on in this meeting. And it was a very boring meeting. And in my head, I'm going, what the hell does this matter whether I'm listening to your stupid meeting when I'm getting 80% of the stories here, right? Isn't that more important than pretending to listen so closely to your dumb meeting? Well, several months later, I was fired. And I was fired basically because of that kind of attitude, even though the results were there. So I violated the very law that I'm telling you about right now. But at that time, I didn't care because I hated that job. So they fired me and I was fine with that. I went on to my next job. That's not a good attitude for a lot of people in this day and age. I wouldn't advocate that you feel that way. But sometimes you get this idea, you enter the work world kind of naive and you think that what matters is getting results, doing a good job. You know, if you're the one getting the results more than other people in the company, you should be promoted. That's a great thing. But it doesn't work that way. It's political. I wasn't being political with this woman. I wasn't impressing her. I wasn't brown-nosing with her. I wasn't telling her how great she was, how wonderful her meetings were, right? I was just doing my job. And I got fired. So you've got to be aware that people are playing political games. Whenever 3 people get together, this is something I've say often, whenever 3 people are together in a group, there's politics, there's ego, there's battling. Who's the best? Who's better than this person? Constantly comparing. You have to be aware of that constantly and not be so naive.
Body language tells you a lot. Like, is somebody, when they're talking to you and you're standing up at a party, is their body kind of facing another direction while they're talking to you? Are they kind of looking out that way while they're talking to you? That means they're not really interested in you. They're not really engaged in you, right? Also, when you catch people by surprise and they don't have the time to put on a fake smile, I often tell people to do this. Like, there's somebody in your office and you don't know whether they're a snake or that they're actually genuinely your friend. You suspect it could go either way. You kind of approach them from an angle, right? And you surprise them, and you come up to them, and you go, they look at you, and for a second, you detect what we call a micro expression of disdain, and then they put on the smile. That micro expression, which scientists, psychologists have studied, lasts for like less than a second, much less than a second. You have to be able to read it, but it reveals whether they actually like you or they're totally false. They can't fake it. So if you come straight on, they'll, oh, hi, Stephen, I love it. Great to see you. They come to, oh, they kind of pretend, then they try and act, and you can get clues like that.